Okay, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear BCC members and business partners. My name is Sylvia Bushniaková. I'm your deputy head webinar, which is cost-cutting consideration in the time of COVID-19. We do our online seminars based on your ideas and your requests, and obviously this was one of them. We always react, I dare to say, quite quickly, so we immediately reached to a speaker and an expert to this field, and it's Milan Rous from Kinsteller. Before I hand over my word to Milan, I'd like to introduce him properly. He's got 25 years of experience in finance and general management. He started his career at Cooper's Life Brand Audit Department, obviously, and gained experience within different portfolio of international companies such as Unilever or Czech Telecom or Telefonica, Czech Republic. He spent 6 years in CIS countries working as CFO for Home Credit in Kazakhstan Bank, as well as he worked for a mobile provider in Azerbaijan. Interestingly enough, and this is what I remember, he restructured 1911-8 services, which is or was being one of the largest BPO companies on Czech and Slovak markets, and he also established Dodo courier services, which you can now see in Prague all over. He also spent his time and led Avast Finance to successful LSE IPO in 2017, and he's currently working as group CFO for a group of legal companies covering Kinsteller and DFDL brands. So this was, I dare to say, exhausting introduction. Basically, Milan will be covering different topics. He will also share the strategy for upcoming 3 to 6 to 9 months. And you will obviously have your chance to place your Q&A question through the webinar. So don't hesitate to ask your questions. Milan will be more than happy to answer this all. And before we leave today's webinar, please let me also say then later on a few words about upcoming events as blind wine tasting, online version, and etc. So thank you so much for your attention, and Milane, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Sylvia. Good afternoon to everyone. Okay, where to start? Actually, it's my first webinar in my history, so I'm a bit nervous. But let me basically go immediately back to the topic. When I was thinking about what to say on this topic, I was thinking about either to go to some very specific details and say how the cost-cutting measures should be taken, what needs to be done. Finally, I slightly changed my approach. What you will not get here today is a detailed guidance of what to do, because I believe every single business is different, and it wouldn't most probably give a big advantage to everyone to say what should be done in details. My aim is to a bit recap what has happened recently with the COVID-19 story, or basically return back 3 or 4 months ago and see what we were facing those times and how we potentially see it today. I'll be sharing my views mostly, so like the general ones, and also I want to share my way of thinking. I'll most probably not give you the answers, but I can potentially, we can share, all those lots of different questions which we all have had, or we still continue having. And I'll definitely be happy to answer any questions, or even to have an individually follow up after this call. Because if any one of you would be interesting to have, one-to-one discussions, I believe it can also help me to enrich my experience a bit when talking about your potential businesses. Okay, so let's start. I would say a small flashback. My presentation is sort of like a summary of my thoughts. So again, I'll share it with you. So how it all started, I think, we can come back to January 2020. It all started in China. And I think when we all were looking at what's happening in China, we all mostly had a feeling that it's not gonna touch us, personally, or don't touch our businesses across the globe. I think hardly anyone had thought about that. So I would say a bit shock therapy for all of us. European and US markets shut down sort of mid of March. Each different country took different measures. But I think, when we saw it, for the first time on our TVs or heard in the radios, I think none of us expected what the shutdown means and what does it mean for us in terms of economical development. I think when we thought about it for the very, very first time, I think, people around me, all of us were thinking like, okay, so is it the end of the world, or is something going to change significantly, or is it, just, something which can potentially influence next couple of weeks or months? I think what's exceptional on this crisis is that it's worldwide and affects basically all spheres of businesses, whole world, all the different sectors, basically hardly any exception at all. I know that there are certain, industries or companies who do benefit from current situation, but I would say in general it's still sort of unprecedented because crisis came immediately in one shot and affected everyone. I think what's still sort of a red line, which started, at the very, very beginning, and I can still, see it now, is the uncertainty about timing. I think when we all thought about it at the beginning, or at least my thoughts were that once we start with the home offices, it will take a week or two, maximum 3. Now we are ending already second month, and we see certain hope or light at the end of this sort of tunnel, but we still do not exactly know what's gonna follow and what comes after. Definitely, when we ran into this crisis, 2 months ago, I think every one of us, in finance and in management was asking what the governments will do. Are they going to support us? Why? How? What does it mean for us? Is it short term, long term? One of the very specific questions was how the banking sector will react, because I think all of us who already saw certain historical economical crisis, we all know that banks are being usually hit first. So can we expect some domino effects in the near future? I think all this discussion also led to the much more micro level, saying like what my business future looks like. Shall I quit the business? Do I have money enough to continue? Shall I hope for someone who can rescue me? Or am I able to find some motivation to change what I'm doing recently? But of course, put a lot of pressure on different managements, because none of us are purely, private equity owners, but we also work as different managers, and our role is usually to make sure that we properly govern, someone else's finance. A big question, of course, for everyone was what will happen with employees, because usually they are the ones, having lower incomes, and they are usually the first ones being targeted whenever potentially cost-cutting measure comes. So again, shall we start firing people? Shall we fire them, selectively, or what measures shall we take to make sure that we, as a business, can survive? I think it also went to some sort of like individual personal or personality levels. I personally, when it all started, had the first couple of weeks sort of a challenge to accept it. One of the reasons was that I joined the current group having growth expectations, going for much more M&As and basically expanding the business. And now suddenly, we say, okay, let's reschedule it, or let's rethink what the future looks like. So it was one of those questions which I think most of us also ask ourselves. So basically, when it all started, I think in general we were asking ourselves what comes next. I did have a chance to go through a couple of crises before, or basically some of my historical jobs and assignments where I would say crisis management or change management based. So I think one of the learnings I took from those historic experiences, that whenever any company or anyone basically gets to a sort of crisis situation, cash is the king. Basically, do you have some money to spend? Fine. You don't have the money, okay, bad luck, or let's see what we can do. So I think the current situation is more or less the same again. I personally believe that whoever does have certain cash reserves can benefit from it for the near future. If there are any businesses which got hit immediately, and I know that there must have been plenty of them, and if you do not have any cash reserve, then mostly you have to really behave immediately. You have to make a very let's say immediate actions to be taken, because either you survive or you are out of the business. But I think now, us talking here after 2 months of the beginning, I would believe that all of us either survived or already established certain measures to make sure and to believe that we still in the business. In case we still in the business and we haven't been hit immediately with immediate impact, and I think there is always a chance for all of us to basically sit down a bit, think about everything what's happening, think about twice of what the measures should take place, because once we make a decision, we can either benefit from it, or it can even help us to basically collapse in the near future. But I think in general, the biggest I think thoughts which every one of us in finance does is that let's minimize our cash outflows, because once we minimize them, then it gives us a bit more space to maneuver in the near future and basically benefit from it a bit later on. Whenever we go to crisis, I think all of us, or all of you mostly must know it as well, that it's not about the crisis itself. I know we shouldn't basically get depressed because of the situation, but I think it also very much opens our minds, or may open our minds, and start thinking whether we can transform the business. Do we know what we could do? Do we know how did we do the business up to today? I think it's useful really to start these sort of thoughts, because at the end of the day, again, it's us, as management or business owners, who are responsible for our own steps. And I think it should be all of us who basically, again, take the lead and start thinking, positively about the future. One of the learnings which I got from my experience is that, and I think we all know it again, even from the current general situation, is that whenever anyone gets into the crisis, people start behaving differently. So I think there is a good benefit of having good people around you. Is in this situation. Definitely the ones who can bring some value. And I think specifically during these crisis moments, this can bring a lot of value to our thoughts or our behavior or decisions as well. So definitely they are extremely crucial for all of us, specifically these days. One of the other topics which definitely is also considered during the crisis is, can we potentially talk to banks? Can we talk to our partners who lended us some external financing? I believe there is a chance. I know that there is always a certain time to get there. But again, I would say even the crisis does give us a chance, to talk to banks or private equity or external financing partners, and potentially, think about what can be the M&A target for the near future and how to potentially change or expand the current business. Lessons learned. As Sylvia mentioned, I have joined 8 months ago a group of independent legal firms covered by under Kinstellar and DF brands. The group itself works in CE and CIRIS region, as well as Southeast Asia. It's partnership-based business, professional services, international business, with lots of senior management people on the top structures. It's multicultural, and all the group is basically consensus-based, decision making. So you can understand that having quite a sizable volume of people who has to make a decision, who has to agree on it, who does have lots of historical experience, sometimes brings you a lots of completely different views, and this is definitely a good and nice challenge which we faced at the very beginning. When we all went into this sort of situation, it has definitely been a shock for all of us, I would say. And I think, again, the biggest topic for us was the uncertainty, because it simply came in immediately. Everything has been infected. So basically all our potential clients or existing clients from all different industries, all of them started to feel or face, their own, business situations. The South Asian market has been impacted, I would say already January, February. So we did have a chance to see, certain first yellow or red flags and signs from the business over there, which we could utilize on the European operations. But again, as I said, lots of the senior people already understood, how to run the business, but suddenly now, when there is such a huge risk, the first agreement which we all made is that we want to see all the different KPIs of the business on a daily or weekly basis. We agreed that we want to really run the business by statistics, or at least see the different statistics to try to understand, how serious the situation may look like. And I think this is something which, at the very beginning, changed really the existing landscape. And I think it also helped us to understand business more. It has been quite a significant, impact on the people in finance, because, once you get used to utilize, these sort of reports on a monthly basis, and suddenly you say, hey, it has to be done daily, weekly. So there has been quite a sizable, workload, on the finance side, which usually it is, again, during the crisis. But I think we went through it quite well. We got all the statistics which we needed, and basically it already gave us a certain, flavor of what we can expect. At the very, very beginning, and I think you all also went through the same process, is that we were debating on what our priorities are. And again, I would say this is sort of like a general approach to every other business. And the priorities are clearly, again, as already mentioned before, let's preserve the cash for the maximum level, because we all want to stay strong, as long as we can get. We still want to have, cash reserves enough to be able to not only to cover the operation, but also utilize it for a potential interesting new opportunities. Second topic was clear. It's not only about cash, but it's also about minimizing, existing cost structure. Because I think everyone who knows the finance, saving cash sometimes is slightly different to what saving cost means. So basically, we started to review all our cost structures. We took all the biggest tickets within our cost structure, and we agreed that we have to basically follow every single one by one to try to renegotiate the conditions. One of the priorities which we agreed on is, and again, I think it's specifically because we are in this specific business, is that we want to save just for employees. Again, I would say it might be like a general approach to everyone, but in consultancy business or professional services business, we all know that employees create values. So if you start firing people, I think it can immediately or very soon impact your business, because the know-how can diminish or can disappear. So basically, these three priorities has been clearly set at the very beginning. The next stage, I think, again, everyone who knows the finance, that we started to value the different impacts. At the very beginning, it has been quite a challenge, how to come up with a, let's say, different how to say it, a reliable results, because as there hasn't been any basically historical data at all available. Again, it was sort of, let's try and calculate something and let's see the different scenarios, and let's see how these scenarios will lead us to. At the end of the day, I think what we agreed on is basically to say, hey, this is sort of break-even version with certain surplus or risk factor on top of it, which will help us to understand how the business may look like within 3, 6, 9, 12, or 18 months period. And again, we have covered all the different measures, P&L valuation. As I said previously, we already incorporated certain cost-saving measures in different scenarios. What we also did is we calculated all the different income scenarios, just to try to understand how low we could potentially go, but still stay safe with the business. What we also had to cover very carefully was the covenant compliance, which versus the external financing, which again, I mean, you can still have plenty of cash, you can still do quite a good business. But once third party is involved in your business, then you also have to make sure that you comply with those items, and you cannot simply drown the business down just sort of because you omitted some sort of covenant or ratios. We have calculated, as I said, different cost saving scenarios. We do have a strategy for 3, 6, 9 months. The question, of course, is whether we have to switch on from one scenario to the other based on the business development. Recently, we have already moved sort of back from daily and weekly monitoring of the business to bi-weekly and monthly. So now we're just about to close the April accounts, and I think this will be the first months, actually full months, when we could see the real, let's say, impact on a monthly basis, which definitely can give us certain flavor of what the actual impact is. It's still quite a challenge, to understand what the future may look like. Because again, I mean, the crisis is too short, and I think it was so I would say, let's say, dramatic in time that it still doesn't give us really the full picture of what may come next. But again, I mean, the lessons learned part 3, again, and I think we already went through the same. We renegotiated all the existing third-party contracts. This is usually the first way how to potentially cut the costs. We negotiated payment terms, and again, just to follow the first topic is to basically preserve the cash. I have to say our experience was sort of good. We have succeeded, in quite a number of these sort of discussions with third parties. I think what usually, I think, again, once you start knowing people during crisis, I think you already also start to know your business partners during crisis, because then you see who wants to make a long-term business with you and who is the one who wants to make quick money on it. So I think, again, it clearly shows us who is who in terms of business partnering. What we also did, and I haven't mentioned it yet, is that we have minimized all all our investments. Basically, all our capex has been minimized at the very beginning, or basically, made zero. Now, after 2 months, we already agreed that we want to again reassess all our projects, because as we started to understand that the crisis anyway will come, we basically want to invest now time to game-changing projects, whatever it is, either new ERP system or new processes, or basically new ways how to approach our partners. So then we're trying again to establish certain a volume of money on a monthly basis who will basically be utilized for the future potential success of the company. Employees were since the very beginning a big topic for us, and basically we agreed not to fire anyone, and we still don't want to do it. There is of course a certain scenario which can be taken sometimes in the future to but I would say it's sort of a strategical ones. Sorry, well, it's rather critical, basically critical parts of the potential future business development. One of our experiences is that we were not eligible for governmental support in basically most of all our jurisdictions, because as again you all know from the existing situation, at least from the Czech Republic, usually the compensation from the government covers low-paid employees or do have certain hurdles. So basically, we haven't relied on, and we do not rely on the governmental support almost at all. We do monitor situation in every single jurisdiction, which sometimes it's interesting to see, because each and individual different country does approach it differently. So I think you can also learn good examples from here and the bad ones. And of course, as we are business, people's business, then we also do now source the resources based on the existing expecting utilization, again to work a bit more efficiently and bring the value to the group itself. So as I said, we do have different scenarios. We are ready to switch from one scenario to the other. We're not ready now to do it on a, let's say, daily or weekly basis, but we agree that we now start, to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we want to really make a decisions based on real data, which we can basically assess and which we can play with. Okay, so what we do now at the end of April or beginning of May, I would say we got certain lessons learned, but I still say we do not know much yet. From what I can see around me is that after those 4 months when it all started in China, Southeast Asia business started to refresh again. China starts to invest mainly within Southeast Asia. So again, we can see that those businesses are, developing and getting back on track. So again, one of the learnings is, it took us 3 to 4 months, to get there, and we saw certain, decline of the business there. In Europe, it's still difficult to predict. I would say all our businesses are international ones. So most of I would say quite a number of sizable projects, as we all know, has been stopped on EU level and worldwide level, because it's still not clear, what the future may look like. Those key economics are still, on hold. So again, we have to simply wait whatever happens on the US governmental side and EU levels, because this is, where the potential futures is. We all know that certain sectors has been completely shut down, like travel industry or entertainment business. So again, I would say they already know it, but I would say the sooner, the economies open, the sooner basically these, industries will start to develop and bring new opportunities for our business or for the industries itself. What we saw over the last 2 months is that there's quite significant or massive governmental supports in place. The question mark, of course, is who can touch it, basically, who can benefit from it. Again, I would say from what we see in the different jurisdiction is that quite often is politically driven. So again, I would say this is something which you cannot 100% rely on, because these decisions can still change based on what the government wants to target. What we see and what the banks already announced us that the consumer consumption changed significantly. And I think all of us again can face it ourselves, because we are spending now money mostly for food and day-to-day needs. We have minimized, most of us, the potential investments. We still thinking about what might be a potential our personal cash situation, and when the good time to reinvest into some activities can come. Again, I would say all of us now waiting and hoping that prices will go down, which most probably may not really be the issue. International trade slowdown, again, we all see it. Most of the international project has been put on hold, so hardly any big investments are being closed these weeks, because everyone still wants to know what's gonna come in every single different jurisdictions. Dependence on low-paid workers. Again, I mean, all the EU countries suddenly understood, who wants to do, low-paid job, and why and how this sort of crisis can hit them, not having people around, low-paid people around them. Even the Czech Republic, got hit a bit, by this. One of our experience is that the CE region has been quite hit, and I would say more developed countries are showing slightly higher risk rates than the ones who are less developed. I do not want to name here, but I can share it potentially on one-to-ones. What we also faced, and again it can be a positive or it can be a negative sign, is a push on local currencies, devaluation. I think it immediately started mid of March. Dollar-based currencies, significantly, dropped. So again, I mean, we can take it as a risk or opportunity, depending whether we do import or export our business much. But I think the ones who do prepare the financial statements, let's say on euro basis, definitely those countries can already see even a positive impact of devaluation of certain local currencies in their businesses. And banking sector, I was in touch last 3 or 4 weeks, in a number of banks, around me. At the very beginning, all of them were sort of again put on hold their activities. They said, "Oh, there's no time to discuss anything." I would say now everyone tries to understand that all the world is within the same situation, and then once the government started to support us, then the banks also started to have an interest to discuss a potential future, business again, which I would say is again a good sign, because I think the worst thing which can happen to all of us is really to be depressed and have no potential future prospectus. Let me just check time. What comes next? I would say this is still a big issue, or I would say uncertainty staying in here, because we can potentially see the different views on the different jurisdictions. And a good example is Czech government, who clearly says, let's stay in Czech Republic and spend your money in Czech Republic. So this might be one of the reasons how to support potentially local businesses. But of course, for the overall worldwide business, what's important is to know when the shutdown ends. I think this is definitely for all the investors the first one of the first critical measures to understand whether there is a future for them, whether they can invest into certain jurisdictions, and whether they can again think about spending money there. Expectation about free travel for individuals, further restrictions on this level. Again, I mean, this is quite critical for most of the businesses on the local basis as well, because I think now these days, everyone can see that once the border is closed, lots of the travel agencies or restaurants or hotels, basically they have to now wait until when the borders are open, and I think no one still knows exactly what the rules are. Question is about when the individual economics develop back, because again I think the international business has to know what the future looks like. It doesn't help much when the politicians say that the borders will be closed for another 12 months or more, because I think this only increases the uncertainty of the investors, and basically more or less closes the business, international business, for that specific country. What we all know is that there are different forecasts for this year. I mean, yeah, I've got to couple of the ones who say GDP may drop in 2020 for 8 to 10%, which doesn't look that big. But of course, the question is what comes after, and whether we can potentially again expect certain other follow-up crisis in the autumn and winter time. Who knows? Can there be any potential impact for 2021? I don't know. It's again a big question mark. What I was also thinking is about what will happen in the near future, because I think every government now says that they are ready to support, but I would say the deficit will be quite significant or large. And again, the next question is, who will pay for it? I mean, shall we be facing increase in taxation? Most probably will, but when? Does it stay with companies, or it will stay with the private business only? Again, this is something which can quite significantly impact the potential future development, which we do not know exactly now. Well, and is there any chance that things will completely change the landscape in the business? Well, that's a good question. I think it's not for me to answer it, but it's, I would say, for someone else to talk to and assess it. So I would say my summary, and I'm just trying to go to the end, is I would say yes, crisis started. I think we are at its beginning. We still do not exactly know how deep it might be. We can hope for the best, but I would say we should get ready, for the worst scenario. I do believe that certain businesses or certain sectors might be quite significantly impacted over the next couple of months or years. Again, let's see what's going to happen. My personal belief is, let's get ready. Let's be prepared for the potential crisis to come, and let's take measures immediately now. I'm not definitely saying let's cut everything to zero. I'll say let's think about it, and let's think about what activities can bring us some benefits in the future. I would also say let's find good people in the market. I think it's time now to really go for the good ones, and the ones who can basically help us to bring new ideas, or who can increase the value of our business. And then the last comment is, let's don't be depressed. I mean, there's always, when there is a crisis, let's turn it opposite, and let's go for new challenges, and let's basically look to a potential new future. It's not easy, but I think it's doable, and I believe we can get there soon. Okay.
Milane, thank you very much. Extremely fruitful and a very interesting conversation. There are many questions coming, so I think that I will go one by one, and maybe you've already touched some, maybe you can develop your set ideas already further. So one of the question is, in what time frame do you expect the peak of the economic impact on the real economies of the CEE region?
Okay, crystal ball. Honestly, I don't know. That's why I wanted to make this presentation as much general as possible. Because when I was thinking about it, and I mostly just forgot to tell it when I was going through the presentation, or my ideas is I would say it very much depends on the political situation and the governmental support. And because again, when I'm thinking myself about this situation, if again, a good example might be Czech government is if the government says, let's focus on ourselves, let's try to sort of support our investors, our people, Czech citizens. I don't know, it can be, the crisis can be even longer. If we open the borders and if we say, you know what, we came over the first, peak of the crisis or the first part of the crisis, let's open the borders, let's open our economies again and internationally, worldwide. I still believe we can benefit from it, or those countries who will do it can benefit from it quicker, because I think the more money to be spent is usually very welcome during the crisis period of time. So again, I'm sort of, I would definitely not lock the countries, for longer period of time. I would try to bet on, again, making, the communication and investments free, and just try to really become again as a worldwide citizen part of something bigger, because I believe this can help us all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you, Milane. So we're coming to the next one. Should we be concerned about some kind of monetary reform?
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's sensitive. Sylvia, tell me what can I say, because I would say it's a politically related question. And again, I would say, what, in general, I think you all can see that there are countries led by populists, and I do personally have an issue to trust those guys, because what I see, or you could also see is that 1 week there's a certain decision made, and the other week the decision changes because of some reasons. So I'm still not sure whether I would now at this moment of time trust, the governments or the banks, the state banks to be able to really make a good forecast and to confirm that there will not be any changes within the fiscal policy. I'm in doubt. And I already said it. I mean, someone will have to pay the bill. And I think, the one who will have to pay the bill is us, as employees or private persons. So again, I would say some measures will come, but when, I don't know. I would say autumn, because basically every government would see at least 6-9 months of the fiscal year. They will go and ask the parliaments for 2021 state budgets. And I think at this moment, the political negotiation will start, and someone will have to simply, say how to finance the business, or the country's finances, the fiscal system.
Yeah. Thank you. There are more and more questions coming. We usually try to stick to an hour of the webinar. So please, if you have more questions on Milan, then you can definitely, I guess, approach him personally if we don't make it. But let's continue now. Milan, sorry, I'm jumping from one topic to another, but this is how it comes. So which sectors do you think will last the longest to get back on their feet? Thank you, from Karel Kodon.
Oh, honestly, I don't know. At this moment of time, it looks like it's travel business, and entertainment. But honestly, I would say this may recover soon, because once the borders will open, I think there will be definitely a big demand from the different countries again to bring customers back. So I would say this can develop quite significantly, and I would say within a short period of time. Honestly, I don't know. I would still personally wait, because the experience which we have with our customers is that there are still quite a number of sectors which hasn't been touched, by the crisis, effectively yet, because they still basically continue, having the orders from the past, doing the business which has been already negotiated, I don't know, 3, 6, 12 months ago. Again, I would say let's see what the third quarter brings us, and then let's go and make the COVID-19 crisis, webinar number 2, because I think we're still not there yet, and again, basically what I can see from our clients is that everyone really started to make decisions or think short term. So everyone is now trying to cover the topics which are relevant now, like today, this month, what shall I do this month, what shall I do next month, how do you see the situation, our business for the next quarter. But I would say it's still extremely short-term view. And that's why I'm saying I wouldn't simply name, a single one, because it can change, and it will change. For me, it will definitely change. Yeah.
This is more complex question. What do you think about the decision that European business should move more back to Europe and reduce the dependency of EU economy on China?
Yes.
Tough one.
Easy one for me. Let's do it. Well, I don't know. It's again, it's a very complex one, and I think we all can see it basically because I touched it slightly during my presentation. I mean, the developed European Western countries see that not having the workers or people working for them from CE region, low-paid workers, they are suddenly caught. Let me say it, caught naked. On their fields, not being able to, to harvest the crop. Czech Republic or the CE region also is sort of dependent on ex-CIS countries, support of our working labor in many occasions. And I think all the world basically accepted the fact that China is having the cheapest labor and they can produce everything. But for me, I don't believe personally that we can do it, as in one shot, because it will have to be a big mental change for all of us, or at least those who should basically consider started to do the jobs which the other nationalities were doing. So I would say, yeah, I'll definitely be happy for it personally. But on the other hand, what can be the consequences? I think people will mostly require higher salaries, so the goods will get mostly more pricey. Less people could afford it. On the other hand, if they can, in the near future get the jobs back, they can potentially spend more. Honestly, I don't know. I would say it's a philosophical question which mostly goes hand in hand with the fiscal policy and the monetary policy of the government. But personally, yes, I would be happy for it. Yes.
There are more and more personal questions coming because our attendees want to know your personal view to different topics. So I'll put 2 questions together. So could you share, despite this is not exactly the topic we're discussing now, could you share with us your views on the governmental financial aid COVID-2 or postponing loans and etc., and added to that, what help from state you would appreciate?
Meaning local Czech Republic?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Can I switch my video now? Well, I don't know. Honestly, I don't want to get into this personal discussion. Well, I believe the Czech government did or still does some decisions based on a populism, measured sort of expected results. I would personally love to see sort of more consistent approach. For me personally, definitely would be better not to have public statements on a daily basis, but basically say the government say, hey, give us 2 to 3 weeks, we will lock ourselves down somewhere in the room, and then we will come back to all the audience with something which will exactly have a, how to say it, which there will be a prospectus for 3, 6, 9, 12 months, because I think this is what we all need sort of or deserve, and investors actually require it, right? I mean, it's basically for all of us around the same. I mean, I would be personally ready to take some investment, but honestly, at this point of time, definitely not, because I mean, I'm still missing some pieces of the puzzle. Does it answer the question? I know it does not, but
no, I think partially does, because you expressed your view, and that's perfectly fine.
Basically what I will summarize it. I see consistency, and definitely with the consistency, the trust can follow after. But I'm sort of a bit negative after the last weeks, whether we really can believe that every single news coming every single day is something which we can basically rely on.
Okay, Milan, another one. This is going to your company. Did you also renegotiate working contracts of your employees, or did you actually lower salary, sorry, or it was not needed yet, or did you use completely different solution to that?
It's under discussion. It's under sort of negotiations on the top level, because as I said, during the presentation, whatever we do in our group, we want to basically find a consensus. We don't want to simply make everyone benefit from the current situation. It's one of the scenarios, and we can consider it. Yeah, definitely we can, and we will, once we basically see that there is a potential really like significant impact on the business. But as I said at the very beginning, I mean, we tried our best to renegotiate all the external parties, contracts. I'm meaning not the legal practices, over the last 2 months or the first 2 months. And we still believe that we are not at the state that we have to basically cut salaries or go, and touch people. I think, we have already sort of pre-discussed it. I think quite a number of people do have these sort of expectations, but we want to really make it, based on the consensus, and it will be most probably not us as employer coming to employees and simply making, one-side measures. Definitely, if anything like that comes, we want to make sure that we specifically discuss it with every single person. So yeah, but yeah, it can come. Yeah, definitely. But like the other businesses, I mean, yeah.
There are more questions coming, but we have already answered them. There's one interesting one from Teresa. Hi, can you go a little more into details about negotiations with the third parties? What reaction can we generally await from the big consultancy firms when negotiating their rates significant discount? Thanks for sharing, Teresa.
Yeah. Well, again, in general, there are 2 different ways. What I really love on our group is that we want to, and we do make a serious business, and we really want to be seen and perceived as reliable and trustworthy partners. So definitely, this is the approach which we want to keep to our employees and also third parties. What I'm saying is that basically we came to every single third party, and I would say we asked them for sort of support in this situation. We were discussing with everyone that we all believe it's like short-term short-term measure. We also offered the key ones a potential sort of upside, when in the near future when the situation gets better again. So we really approach our partners around the globe rather than, I would say, in a nice and positive way, trying to basically renegotiate the longer term perspective for the cooperation. I'm not aware of anyone where we would have gone and said, hey, if you don't agree, we basically will terminate the contract because we don't believe this should be the way how to basically make the business long term. I know it wasn't mostly again that much specific, but I believe in this approach. I mean, and again we basically discuss it. I think if you do have business partners who are not willing to sort of understand your needs, even if they are sometimes in a desperate situation, then I think what can happen in the near future is that once you have to again do a new business, basically those might not be the ones who would you select for the future. That might be the punishment, let's say.
Yeah, I agree completely. Another obviously a bit difficult question because we don't know about the investments, but how would you approach now planned investments in your company? They're not crucial but needed in short term. Would you postpone the investment and keep the cash since you're not struggling with the cash yet, or would you go ahead to take the advantage? I know it's quite tricky when you don't know what it is about, but just generally.
And is it really anonymous, or is someone from our group now?
It is anonymous attendee, so we don't know.
Let me answer it this way. I think I have personally changed quite a lot over those 25 years of experience in finance, a lot, because when you ask me this question 10, 15 years ago, I'll definitely tell you or tell everyone, go and stop immediately everything, because money is priority, and every penny basically counts. I would say now, based on the experience I gained, is I would say let's spend some money if we see the potential benefits. And again, a good example in our case is we started to discuss new ERP system upgrade. We wanted to change processes. We wanted to do everything, in one shot this year. Simply big plans, project open now. Let's get it done, by end of June. Actually, instead of, cutting 100% of those costs, we're still debating how to minimize the investment. But again, for me, I see it as an opportunity to change something. Because what we prepared ourselves as processes or the ways how to communicate within the company, or how to basically approach certain transactions or processes. Now I see that we basically were sometimes stuck in the past behavior, and when you talk to people suddenly now, then there are new open ideas. So I would say, not 100%, but it does have to make sense. I wouldn't again spend the money now within one shot immediately, but I would basically spend something which is reasonable. And the question is, who decides what's reasonable? But again, for me, let's invest now into something which we can benefit from in the near future, because usually those investments are related to some savings. And again, stopping investment now means that the company can get into troubles, in the short-term run immediately. Because if I know that I want to basically finalize certain project now within, 3 months, and I get a saving which is much higher within the next 6 months what I have invested, then I would be, as a CFO, saying, let's go for it. But then I will be the ones within this next 6 months really putting a big pressure on those decisions, and I would love to see those savings. But now I would definitely say, let's go for it, and let's basically clean up a bit, the house, and let's, change something.
Okay, we have a last question here. Milan, many thanks for your talk. What was the most challenging issue for you, business-wise, but also privately, if you can share?
Yeah.
Fine.
Privately. Yeah. Privately, the biggest challenge was to make my daughters, who are 8 and 5, understand that me sitting at home during the home office period of time, I'm not 24/7 accessible, unfortunately for them, because at the very, very beginning of these home office, eras, everyone, basically they felt like we are all home. It's sort of, how to say it, holidays period for us, and they do have a chance to talk to me any single time. After 2 weeks, they understood it, so they usually open the door, like it happened already twice now during our webinar. They look at me and they already look at me saying, "Oh, you're having a call, right?" I said, "Yes." And it was the biggest personal challenge for me. The second personal challenge was that I love to talk to people, I love to meet people, and suddenly you being locked in the home office, it's a new experience for me. I do not perceive myself to be a good guy talking over the phone or over the video like today. I still don't feel naturally after that 1 hour. And basically the challenge was that you're sitting from the morning till the very, very late evening on the different calls. And I found out that basically I'm very often more exhausted than being in the office, because everyone being at home does believe that he or she does have a priority to fix everything what needs to be fixed. So usually it has been multitasking question for me. Even I'm not multitasking man, but these were the private challenges. Yeah, but I think I sort of overcome it, and honestly now I cannot imagine to go to the office again on a daily basis, surprisingly.
I think we all have the very similar feelings and experience, yes. Milan, thank you so much for joining this webinar. It was extremely useful, and we got to know many interesting information and your point of view, which is very appreciated. I would before we leave, this session is being recorded, as far as I'm having the right information, and if you will agree, obviously, and your company will agree, then we will place this on our website, which members then can see it later on. I would also like to say now to all our attendees and invite them to our blind wine tasting online version. Milana, you're more than invited as well. Everything is on our website. You just purchase a box of 6 bottles, and then me and one of our wine partners, Tempo Allegro, will guide you through the blind tasting. Since there can be 10 people together now, you can invite your friends, you can invite Lukashevchik maybe, and your family, and we can do this all together. So in BCC, we have found out that almost all of the events can be transferred to online version. Never though, as you said, Milana, it's never that much fun as we used to have. So that's it from me now. Thank you once again to Milan Rous. Thank you once again to all attendees, and obviously to Kinsteller for letting you do this for us. If you have any question, we will provide to all attendees when Milan agrees his email address, and you can continue to have your private conversation later on. So thank you once again, and have everybody a lovely afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Milan.
Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.